And so they're fishing, and all of a sudden the green truck pulls up.
Oh, yes, the green truck.
The green truck. And the person got out and said,
That's Fish and Game, right? Fish and Game.
Yeah. And they said, guys, didn't you see the sign? No, there's no sign. And so the warden goes, I know you're here because the people on the top of the hill, they call when somebody comes in here. And so this is the Department of Fish and Game's hatchery. This is where they plant baby fish and they let them grow to be big fish and they take them to the lake. So these fish have never been fished and they were monsters.
Welcome to the Restore Go podcast, where we discover ways to restore our relationship with God and others. Now, here are your co-hosts, biblical therapist Pete Thompson and biblical coach Lynn Thompson. Together, let's learn how to restore go.
Welcome to Restore Go. I'm biblical therapist Pete Thompson.
And I'm biblical coach Lynn Thompson. And today we are going to talk about the power of humor. So Ecclesiastes 3:4 says this: there is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. Well, today we're going to laugh. We're going to talk about some of the healing properties behind laughter, both physical and mental health. So, Pete, you use humor in your practice, don't you?
Absolutely, because it really will tone down maybe a stressful, anxious moment, everything from self-depreciating humor about myself seems to relax people and know that I'm a real person as well.
Well, it can even be silly. I've noticed sometimes, the dad joke, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes you'll even be silly and it does something really amazing to the mood.
Yeah, because when a person first comes in, they don't know what to expect, or they've had previous experience with other therapists that have been much more stressful. So they're coming in that stress heightened state or high arousal state, and it really gets in the way of that person getting what they need out of therapy. And so using some type of early humor about something or about myself or whatever kind of tones everything down.
It's so funny because I feel like it kind of changes the bar, that when you say some of your silly stuff, it's so lame and silly that it almost kind of helps them feel like, okay, there's nothing I can say here that's going to be too weird or too silly.
I've already dropped the bar low.
You've already lowered the bar. Exactly. It's so good. So Proverbs 17:22 says something very interesting. It says, a joyful heart is good medicine, but a broken spirit dries up the bones. And there have been actual studies to find out that that laughter brings medical benefits. So a Mayo Clinic medical study showed that laughter has many benefits. One, it stimulates organs. You have a better intake of oxygen, stimulates the heart, increases endorphins in the brain. The next one is it cools down stress response. The other, it stimulates circulation and aids in muscle relaxation. Also, it improves your immune system. Well, everybody's all freaked out about their immune system. They're trying to take vitamins and everything else.
Yep.
And here we find out that all you need to do is laugh.
So the important thing about that is it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. And activating that is the recharge mode that we're in, because most of us spend a lot of time in the stress response cycle. We don't even know that we're stressed. And so laughter is able to turn that off for a short time. And so it's really healthy so that our body can operate the way God intended it to operate. And so humor is just one of those aspects, as well as there's some other tools that I teach people how to access that as well.
So the other thing it does, it relieves pain. And that kind of makes sense to me because I notice, like, if I'm giving blood or something, they're always like trying to distract me with stories or, oh, some funny story or something. So it does relieve pain because I stopped thinking about my pain. And then the other, it does improve our moods.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. It seems like people today, though, have forgotten how to laugh at awkward situations and even at themselves. Do you think social media perfection might be part of the issue?
Well, yeah, because everybody is ingrained in now we have to put our most perfect self forward, and there's something wrong with us if we're not putting our perfect self forward, all our best things. I mean, you look at our social media things that we have, it's a highlight reel of all the best things we're doing, and people have forgotten how to be silly and laugh and be able to live in the humor of the moment, because the moment can be very humorous when we look at the lessons God is teaching us and how he taught us that lesson.
Yeah. You know, it's so funny. I was looking at Instagram. I follow John Crist. He's like a Christian comedian, and he's so funny. And he recently ran a post that, or is that how they say it? I don't even know how they say it. Anyway, he recently put something up on Instagram that was hilarious and very self-deprecating. And so I don't know if it was true or not, but I really would love to see this trend start happening. So he apparently, by the story, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to get it as correct as I can, is that he was at a hotel because he travels for his speaking, his humor engagements. Anyway, he ordered DoorDash. And so he went down to the lobby because they call you and tell you when your meal's ready. And you go down to the lobby and you get your DoorDash, and the gal's there delivering his DoorDash. And so she hands him the food and she says, "Do you mind if I take a picture?" Well, he's a celebrity. So he's used to people, "Oh, yeah, sure." And so he puts his arm around her to do so she can take a selfie. And she's looking at him like, "What?" And he's like, "What?" It's just that awkward moment. And then she's like, "Of the food." So here he's like, "Wow, do I think so much of myself that I thought it was a selfie and it's not a selfie? She's just taking the food." It just was very hilarious.
Uh-huh.
And so I thought, in spirit of that we have some funny things that have happened in our lives. Not that I could compare with a comedian, of course. But, I thought it would be fun to share some funny events that brought laughter to our life. And believe it or not, people, these are true events. We are not making these up.
Nope.
You can't make this stuff up. So I'll tell mine first, okay? So I was running around with our son, running errands, because, as a mom, you're always running errands. And he was probably only about, I want to say 14, 15 years old at this time. And we needed to stop at the bank. One more stop. And he's like, "Mom, I am so sick of running errands. I just want to go home." And I'm like, "No, just one more stop. I have to run into the bank really quick." He's like, I'm tired of errands. I go, I know. I'll keep the car running. I'll keep the air conditioning running. You can stay in the car. You don't even have to go in. I just need to run in and drop off a check, get it deposited, and I'll be right back in the car. So it's just going to take me a minute. He's like, "Uh-huh." So I run in the bank as fast as I can, knowing I got a teenage kid in the car. It's not too happy with me. And I deposit the check. I run out of the bank and I jump in the car. And as I'm like starting to, put it in drive, I realize this is not my car. And I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I turn to my right and there's a kid sitting there because, I was expecting to get in the car with a kid, but this is a girl and she's sitting there. Her car was running too. So I don't know. Her mom may have been in the bank doing the same thing. And she just looks at me and she goes, "Wrong car." That's all she says. That's all she says. And I go, "I am so sorry." And I look over at David and he's doing that, the palm to the head, forehead thing. He's doing a forehead palm. And I get out of the girl's car. Good thing she didn't, think I was attacking. I probably look like her mom, And so I got into the car. And David's like, "I cannot believe you just did that." But it was just one of those moments. I'll probably, tell this at weddings and funerals and ever, because I was so hurried that I didn't pay attention to the fact that, I thought, oh, it's a car, it's running, it has a kid in it, same thing. And it just wasn't. So anyway, your stories always revolve around fishing, which are really fun to hear.
Because I really enjoy fishing. It's one of the things that it's very relaxing, and it's beautiful scenery and everything. And so one time I was fishing at a lake near our house, and I saw this fish jumping at this one spot far away. And so I said, okay, I've got to get my lure and my equipment over there. So I put on this special bobber. It's a clear bobber that you fill halfway up with water. And so it really provides a lot of weight on the end of the line. And so with both hands, I held the pole and I flicked it as hard as I could. And all of a sudden I heard this
smack.
And it's like, it didn't make sense, a smack. And then I saw the bobber drop right in the water right in front of me, nowhere near where that bobber was supposed to be. And I look up and I see this sparrow coming out of the sky, kind of flopping, doing a crash, and landing right in the water in front of me. And so it's like, I'm thinking, God, you're watching the sparrow.
His eye was on the sparrow, but not on that one.
Not on that one. And so it's just, and so it went down the current took it somewhere else.
Floating down the river.
But, so I was expected to catch a fish. I wasn't expected to catch a sparrow.
That's hilarious.
But the most and the funniest fishing story that I had, this was about the same time frame. And so my friends found this one place that said, oh, the fishing is great. We're putting 8-pound test on our line and the bass are snapping the line. And so we said, okay, let's go tomorrow. So me and 2 other guys who went that next day, and we just had the most phenomenal fishing day. I mean, we were wading through streams and just ponds, and every second cast we were bringing a fish in, largemouth, big old crappie, and all sorts of things. And we just had a phenomenal, we just did catch and release, and everybody caught about 11 fish and just threw them back.
Oh my goodness.
And so it was just phenomenal. I've never been at such a good fishing hole. So we're talking and we're happy and everything. And so they went the next weekend.
So you didn't go with them?
I didn't go with them because I had to work. I was kind of bummed because I wanted to go again. And so they're fishing, and all of a sudden the green truck pulls up.
Oh, yes, the green truck.
The green truck. And the person got out and said,
that's Fish and Game, right? Fishing Game.
Yeah. And they said, guys, didn't you see the sign? No, there's no sign. And so the warden goes, I know you're here because the people on the top of the hill, they call when somebody comes in here. And so this is the Department of Fish and Game's hatchery. This is where they plant baby fish and they let them grow to be big fish, and they take them to the lake. So these fish have never been fished, and they were monsters. I mean, it was 16-inch largemouth bass, crappie that were bigger than the size of somebody's big hand, and it was just phenomenal. I mean, and so it would almost be worth getting a fine and going there again. But so we were all fishing, and it's like, yeah, we were fishing at the park where they grow the fish.
Well, what's so funny is those fish were basically, they had never been hooked before, right?
Yeah.
So these are baby fish. They don't know anything about it. So guess what that means? That means that since you caught all those fish now are smarter fish.
Yes.
And they know where before they would have been dropped in the lake and they would have been as dumb as dirt and been caught. So that tells me that when I have problems catching a fish in the future, I'm going to blame you that it's one of those fish that have been, taught to avoid the hook.
Yeah, because those fish were all transplanted into the 5 major lakes in that area. And so they probably grew up to be pretty smart fish. They're probably lunkers by now.
They grew up wise, very wise to the ways of the world. Oh, my goodness. And I would encourage our listeners, if you have some funny stories, just drop them in the comments because those are always fun to read. Mm-hmm. But I really think that in this day and age, we've become so self-aware and, constantly trying to look perfect, to have that photo finish look, that we are missing out on not only laughter for our mental health, but for our physical health, because we're so over guarded.
Well, it's like we're on all the time, and we can't enjoy the things in the moment because we're worried about our image. We're worried about how we look and how people are going to perceive us. And, one of the things is we want to make sure our focus is on pleasing God rather than pleasing men,
Yeah.
because then we can turn off that image that everything we say has to be perfect. Everything we wear has to be perfect. Hey, next time that you're telling me what you want me to wear,
I
as
knew we were going to go
somewhere.
here. I just knew it.
So now we got to live with more freedom and more relaxed and live in the moment. So I don't need to dress to the nines when we
Okay,
go
I don't
someplace.
care how free you feel. You are not wearing your Crocs to church. You are just not. That is not happening. I don't care if it's a
But
picnic.
it's free. The toes are free.
No, there's no free toes. We are not freeing the toes. Okay, well, God has a great sense of humor too. And it's often witnessed in scripture as like irony or satire. And I think people sometimes miss it because we don't dig down deep enough to see, wait, what is this? What does this mean? But there is so much there. So I thought I'd go through a few of the stories throughout scripture that are reported events, they're real events that happen, and how God has his little stamp of humor almost on each of these events. So the first one is Jonah. So here's Jonah. He's a prophet of God. There's actually a book named after him, so I encourage you to read it. It's in the Bible. He's sent to Nineveh, right? Because the Ninevites they're terrible people, and they're sacrificing. So they're doing all the terrible things that, the Baal worshipers did. And he is supposed to go there and proclaim the word of God and that they need to repent, basically. And he's like, yeah, those are not my people. I don't like those people. They've been mean to my people, and I really don't want them saved. They should burn in hell for what they've done. And I'm getting out of Dodge.
Yeah, because I want judgment to happen to them.
Yeah,
They deserve judgment. They've been mean to Israel for all these decades and hundreds of years. And so God, just, I won't go to them, and you can just wipe them off the map.
Right. And for some reason in his little mind, he thinks if I don't go, then God is going to not be able to work out that plan of redemption for them. So
he was going to hold God hostage.
He's going to hold God hostage. So he jumps on a boat to Tarshish, I believe is what it is.
Which is the opposite
Which
way.
is the opposite
way.
Yeah, I'd like a one-way ticket the opposite of where God is telling me to go. And so he jumps on the ship, and it has terrible storms, and like it's really bad. People are, the whole ship is like, oh my gosh, we're going to die. And so they cast lots and realize that the person who's the focus of this judgment of wrath from the sea god, where it probably is what they're thinking, because I don't know that they are believers. It's someone here. Or I don't know, maybe they were, I didn't study to see if they were Israelites or not. But anyway, they throw the lots, it lands on Jonah. They go to Jonah, they're like, what have you done that God is judging us? And he's like, well, let me tell you a story. And so he tells them the story of how he's ditching God, basically. So he convinces them, just throw me over the board, throw me over the side of the ship, and all this will stop. And you'll live, and I'll probably die.
And so it's great because now I still don't have to preach to the Ninevites because they're going to throw me over. I'm going to drown. And again, I stopped God's plan because I don't like those people.
I'd rather die than help those people.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then he gets swallowed by a fish, right?
Uh-huh.
And he lives in the belly of a fish. We don't even know. People say whale, but it really is fish. Is the translation?
A big fish.
It's a big fish. And he lives in it for 3 days, and then gets basically barfed up on the side on a beach. And I was doing some research, and it was so funny because what some people don't know is that the Nineveh people worshipped a fish god. You can't make this up. He was the father of the false god Baal, that they worship. And he's half man and half fish. So when Jonah was swallowed after running away from his call to witness to the Nineveh people, he was literally half man and half fish. Because
he smelled like fish.
he smelled like fish. But God is basically saying, I'm in charge of the fish too, right? This is the same false god also. Do you remember that scene in 1 Samuel where they put up Dagon? It's Dagon.
Yeah.
And they put it up, and then they put the Ark of the Covenant in the same place. And in the morning, Dagon's on his face, and his hands are in pieces, and his head's fallen off. And it's this false god statue. It's that
Bowing to the Ark.
Bowing to the Ark of the Covenant, right? So it's the same. It's the same god. It's the same false god. So it's just funny to me that it's like, oh, you want to avoid going and saving these people from a fish god? I'll have a fish swallow you, and just there you go. Hey friends, let's be honest. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to find a Christian therapist that's true to your values. Pete Thompson knows that. As a licensed therapist, he is committed to providing godly counsel, introducing helpful tools battling everyday problems like anxiety, addictions, as well as marriage and parenting challenges. Give Pete a call to set up your next confidential appointment online or in the office. Visit PeteThompson.org. Again, that's PeteThompson.org.
Well, imagine if anybody's on the beach or the shore and they see this fish spit this person out. I mean, it probably would give him some cred because
Absolutely.
Because now the fish god spit this person out, and now they're going to go talk to the Ninevites, and it's like, oh my gosh, that guy came out of a fish. We better listen to him.
That's so good. Oh, I wonder if that's what happened. That's
We don't know, but we're just...
That's interesting. Okay, so another event in Scripture. This, of course, is in Exodus, right? So the Egyptians, the Moses, let my people go. Moses says, let my people go. And the Pharaoh there is like, nope, not letting them go. And so God sends all these plagues that ironically represent all the false gods of Egypt. So you have the frog god, Heget. It's the goddess of fertility. And of course, they get decimated with frogs everywhere. And it's like, you want false gods? I'll give you false gods. And so the lice and the gnats is the god Geb, and the god of the earth and the land. And their land was definitely cursed with a bunch of gnats. Cows, so they're god cow, goddess cow, and all the cows are dying. So it's like, obviously your God's not that powerful because he's dropping dead.
All the gods that you worship are all, being decimated and everything, and causing chaos in your society.
Yes. And then here's the ironic one, boils. So he gives them boils, right, as one of the plagues. Well, that's one of their gods called Eskemet and Imtop or whatever. Anyway, it's the god of medicine. So here's their god of medicine, and it's basically making them all sick and die. And then the locusts, of course, they had a grain god, and he sends the locusts to eat all their grain. So you can almost see God just totally laughing and having fun with it. He's like, oh, okay, I can. You want a grain god? Okay, I'll send you your locust grain god. He's gonna eat every single bit of your grain. You're not gonna have any food left.
Yeah, we'll fix that one too. Everything that you worship, I'm gonna mock and make fun of.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? God was the original troller. He really was. He really was. He would have been great on some of these Instagram posts. The next event is in Joshua 5:13 and 14. And so Joshua is getting ready to go into a battle. And all the men have, done the circumcision and the prayers, and, they've fasted. They're getting ready to go into battle. So Joshua is out walking around, probably checking the perimeter and, checking on everything. And he runs basically into God, right? It's where Jesus is in flesh in the Old Testament. And he runs into God Almighty, but he doesn't know it's God. So he says, hey, which side are you on? Are you on their side or our side? And God says something so funny. He's like, neither. I come as captain of the host of the Lord. And it always was a giggle to me, because it's like, no, I'm on my own side. And by the way, he says, I'm bringing an army. I'm bringing the host of the Lord. So my army is bigger. So just saying, you might want to join me, as opposed to this, are you on my side or their side kind of thing. And I mean, isn't that speak to all of us, right? It's like, stop You pick the Lord's side. Whatever that side is, that's the side I want to be on.
Oh, yeah, because taking down Jericho, I mean, it's a highly walled city. Its fortifications are huge. I mean, forever, they probably just retreated amongst their walls and didn't worry about any invader or anything. And so then, God has Joshua and the people march around the city for 7 days. And on the seventh day, I think he had to march around 7 times. And then he said, do a shout. And when he did the shout, these powerful walls fell down. Now, they didn't fall down on the Israelites marching around them. They fell down on the city itself, and so killed all the guards off the wall, and anybody near the wall were crushed. And so Israel was able to just go in. So he made a mockery of Jericho's walls, thinking, oh, these walls will protect you. No, not against God. And so in God's sense of humor, he took down their powerful thing.
Well, then the way he did it, he's like, okay, you're going to carry the ark. So this is in Joshua.
Yeah.
So this is staying in Joshua.
Yeah.
So they're carrying the ark and they're singing. They're singing. Like, that's not usually a weapon that you think of. If you were going to go attack a group of people, you wouldn't be singing.
I think that was the last day that they sang.
Right. But they're going in, they're carrying the ark, they're singing, they're marching, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the last day, they shout. And so it's kind of hilarious. I mean, I'm sure those enemies were like, what in the world? What is wrong with these people?
They're crazy.
They're crazy. Yeah. Not knowing
marching
what's
around. What can they do?
Yeah. And then, of course, he saves a prostitute named Rahab in that event. And it's not unlike them in the book of Hosea later, where we see Israelite prostitute themselves before false gods. And then to drive the concept of repentance and redemption home, he has Rahab, the prostitute, be in the line of Jesus because she chose well.
And she protected the spies.
Well, yeah, she knew that they were, the ones that came from the true living God. Her gods really weren't doing it for her. So she realized, and she heard the history of, the plagues. I mean, that had even reached that area.
Well, and we probably would be safe to assume that the people that lived in Jericho, as well as other cities, probably were spying out the Israelites the whole time and watching God open up the sea. Because the other thing, when they did cross the Jordan River, it was dried up because it was at flood stage at that time. And so all the people in Jericho and the other cities are like, okay, we don't have to worry for a while because nobody's crossing the Jordan. And then when God dried it up, it's like, again, God's more powerful than anything there. That probably freaked them out.
Yeah, exactly. Back to Numbers. So in Numbers 16:23-33, we have a pick his side moment there. So we have Korah, and Korah has gotten together a group of rebels that do not like Moses, and they don't like his plan, and they kind of want to go back to Egypt. And so he's basically creating division in the camp. He's starting a coup, right? Basically, he's doing a coup. And God has had enough of it. And God's like, okay, let's have them pick a side. Everybody who's for Korah, fine. If you're for Korah, you stay by Korah. But if you're not for Korah, you get away from their tent, you get away from where they are, you get on the other side. And so the people are quickly picking his side. And then God creates, basically the earth opens up and swallows Korah and all his people. So it's like, step away from the rebellious people. They are going down, like literally going down, because the hole not only opens and swallows them, but it like covers up again.
Well, yeah. And nobody ever expected anything like that. And so it's like, okay, God's, again, cleaning house.
Exactly. And he does it almost in a humorous way that way. I mean, it's not humorous for the people that died, but it's just like.
But it was a wake-up call for the people that said, maybe I need to be on Moses' side. I'm not sure, but I probably need to be on Moses' side and follow God. And after that event, it's like, oh, it's kind of amazing that they would have anybody that would reject God after that or not follow God after seeing all those people be swallowed up.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'm not picking that side. Nope, not doing that. Okay, well, the next funny kind of humor, and people often cite this as a funny moment, in the biblical history is the talking donkey, right? So you have Balak. He hates the Israelites, and basically he got a bunch of new neighbors, right? Because they're roaming the desert. They show up in his neighborhood. He is like NIMBY, not in my backyard. So Balak has gotten a bunch of new neighbors he doesn't want. So he hires Balaam to curse them. Because Balaam is like this guy who's a prophet for hire, like you said. You want me to curse someone? You want me to bless someone?
Got to pay me lots of money.
I'm your guy. Just click on iwillcursepeople.com, right? Something like that. And so God says to Balaam, no, you're going to bless them. Okay. But he's on a mission to make money. So he takes his donkey and he's like, no, I'm going to go curse these people because I'm getting paid. And the donkey like stops him several times and like turns against it, goes against the direction he's going, and he's beating on his donkey. Like he starts whipping him. And finally the donkey talks. And he's like, why are you beating me? I've let you ride me all your life. So it's almost like the donkey's kind of, I have a history with you. I have kept you alive, and there may have been stories, right? I have kept you alive all your life, and now you're questioning my good judgment. And of course, then God opens the eyes of Balaam, and he sees that the donkey is avoiding an angel that is ready to kill Balaam. Yeah. And so Balaam is like, oh, I see.
Sorry, donkey.
I'm sorry, donkey. You do protect me. And so then he goes and he blesses Israel, right? And of course, then Balak loses his mind. And he's like, wait, I paid you. I promised you all this money.
You're supposed to stay bought.
Yeah,
I bought and paid for you. You're supposed to stay bought.
Exactly. So it's so funny that, who would have thought that God would have allowed the donkey to talk to be able to say that? That's just pretty funny to me. The New Testament also has some events. And there's quite a few of them, but I thought I'd just touch on a couple. One is in Luke 24:19, and it's the road to Emmaus, right? So Jesus has just risen from the dead, and all the town is talking, right? Because everybody knows something has happened here. And so you have these two men, they're talking about the events that have led up to the crucifixion. They're talking about the crucifixion. They're talking about the risen Jesus. Right? They say he's risen from the grave, and so then they're walking along, and this man is walking with them. And the man says, hey, what are you talking about? What guy rose from the dead? And it's Jesus. It's Jesus risen, right? And it's so funny. I don't know if you've ever had events in your life where somebody's talking about something and you realize they're talking about you without knowing that they're talking about you. I had a neighbor come over to me one time. I used to write for Focus on the Family. And so I had written this magazine article on angry children. And so my neighbor comes over and she's like, hey, Lynn, I found this really great article on anger and children and anger management and stuff with kids. It's a really good article. You should read it. And I go, well, where is it at? She said, oh, it's in this month's issue of Focus on the Family. And I'm thinking, I wrote that article. Do I tell her I wrote that article? At first I thought she was joking, right? Because I thought, well, she for sure saw the byline, right? I mean, it says Lynn Thompson on it. And so I go, well, and she's just going on and on. So I couldn't take it anymore. So I finally am like, so I wrote that article, right? And she's like, no, you didn't. She says, no, you didn't. And I said, no, yeah, I did. And she's like, no, you didn't. I'm going to go home and I'm going to go look at it and prove it to you. And on she goes, and I'm like, oh, she's not coming back. She's not coming back. And so I just went inside with the kids. She did not come back. And so it was just one of those moments. But here we have Jesus kind of doing this on purpose, which is so funny. And he's walking along, really, tell me more, and it's about him. And of course, then hey, you should come to dinner with us. And so he follows them. And then, he disappears before them at the table. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh my goodness.
He probably wasn't hungry.
He wasn't hungry. So it's so funny how you see that where he's having them talk about that. So, and then there's another instance which is super interesting to me, and it's in Luke 4:24 and 25. And so Jesus basically, right after he was tempted on the mountain and he comes down, one of the first talks he has with the Pharisees is he's preaching about God, that the Messiah is here, all of that. It's in that passage where they're like, he's like, I've seen Moses, or I've seen Abraham. And he's like, how could you see Abraham? Who do you think you are? And one of the things that Jesus says that's really poignant, and people sometimes, I think, miss this little caricature that he does. He starts talking about a passage. It says a prophet is not welcome in his own hometown.
Yeah.
So he's not being welcomed. This is where he's lived. This is where he's been, and they're not welcoming him. So what does he do? He reminds them of Elijah. He reminds them of Elijah in 1 Kings. And he's talking about the widow who Elijah shows up, and the widow who is, by the way, a pagan in a pagan country, who is a Gentile. And she ministers to Elijah, and she gives homage and honors the God of Elijah, of the God of Israel, because that is the one true God, even though she's in this pagan area, she's a Gentile. So in essence, by him telling that story, he's saying, and he says to them, nobody wanted to feed Elijah in his own hometown. His own people didn't want to take care of him. God had to send him to a Gentile to be able to be taken care of, because God will go wherever to those who are willing to worship him. And so here he is now going, and basically the same thing is going to happen to you. If you don't accept me, Israel, I will go to the Gentiles and I will find the people that are willing to bow their knee to Almighty God. And that's basically what has happened. So after that, they wanted to stone him because they did get that message. That message was not lost on them.
Because the Israelites, they were supposed to be the original evangelists of telling who God is. And they've dropped the ball so many times that God used Elijah to go. And Elijah probably wasn't in favor of going there because he's a Jew and she's a pagan. And to go into a pagan's house made you ceremonially unclean.
Right.
And so there was probably resistance on his part. And even when God had him heal the son, he's like, he was probably kind of clueless. Why are you having me do this? And all these type of things. So God, a lot of times, works beyond our comprehension or things that we can understand in the moment. And when you look at some of the ways of how he works and you really think about it, it's like he has a very dry sense of humor sometimes.
He does. That's what I'm noticing. It's a very dry sense of humor. So I'll do the last one. So this, of course, is the boat and the fish. Speaking of fish, right?
Yeah.
We're back to fish. We started with fish. We're ending with fish. So in Luke 5:1-8, basically he saves Peter, who is a fisherman, right? He does the miraculous thing where he's been fishing and he says, go back out and fish. I'm going to fill your boat. And it's like, no, we've been fishing all night. There's no fish in this area. And of course, then he fills the boat so much with fish, it almost falls apart. The boat almost tips. And Peter, realizing this miracle, that here he's been fishing, he's a professional fisherman. He knows where the fish are. There's not supposed to be any fish where he told him to be. And there it is, a boat filled with fish. And he realizes this is the Messiah and gets on his knees before Jesus. And his words are, depart from me, I'm a sinful man. He realizes who Jesus is and who he is, and the disparity between a sinful man and a holy God. Well, fast forward after the resurrection, realize Peter has already denied Christ 3 times, right? The rooster crows, that whole thing.
Yep.
He's feeling like I'm a sinful man, right? And I have nothing. And so he goes back. He says, let's go fishing. He goes back to what? Well, I got nothing else. I don't know what to do
Jesus
now.
is gone.
Jesus is gone.
Yeah, so I'll just go fishing.
I'll go fishing.
I gotta eat somehow.
Yeah. So he goes back to what he knows, right? He goes back to fishing. And so they're out there far away, and someone calls from the shore and says, hey, you know, like you always do. I always crack up when you do this. He yells out to people, hey, any luck? You know, basically, Jesus is the one on the shore going, hey, how's the fishing?
He was probably, what's that term when you call when, you know, you do it on social media? Sometimes the term is
The trolling?
trolling. He was probably trolling Peter at that point.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any fish? Of course, no fish, right? So he's like, oh, throw the nets on the right side. It's like, right, because throwing the net on the right side as opposed to the left side, oh, the fish are going to know. I mean, that's just hilarious. And for some reason, they do it. I have no idea why.
Well, there was a whole school of fish all night sitting on the right side of the boat, you know, waiting to be caught.
So they throw the net on the right side, and it totally fills, right? The nets are breaking. They're totally fills. And of course, John's the bright one. He's like, oh, I think it's the Lord, you know. And then Peter jumps into the water and swims to the shore and to be with the Lord. But it's interesting to me because Jesus, I feel like, is basically saying, I chose you then, and I knew who you were, and I choose you now. Because shortly after that, he's like, tend my sheep.
And now we have work to do.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, it's humorous and it's sweet and it's all those things because Jesus knows us. You know, he knows who we are. He knows what he has to work with. And it's not always that much. But he's like, I have a plan and I'm going to do it. And the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And so it's so encouraging. Pete, humor can help us when we're going through very difficult situations, right?
Yeah, because when we look back at those stories, when we really look how, even when we are going through something difficult, when we look back on how God took care of us, and if we look at the details, how God answered prayer or how God corrected us, sometimes you'll see that how he did it was maybe in a humorous way now that we've got some distance between the pain of that event. And so remembering those stories is everything in looking at the providence of God.
Yeah, it's so true. I still remember when my dad passed, we were at the church and someone there said, oh, you have all these flowers. What do you want to do with them? And my brother's like, I don't know. You know, what do they usually do with the flowers at the funeral? There's tons of them. And then the coordinator goes, well, I'll take care of it. And we're like, oh, okay, good. It's going to be taken care of. I don't know if they're going to donate them somewhere. I don't know what happens. And so we get in the car, you know, they take you and they drop us off at the house. And in front of the house on the lawn, because they couldn't get into the house, are literally all the flowers that were at the funeral. I mean, all of them on the front lawn.
Mm-hmm.
And we just kind of chuckled and laughed because it was such a funny sight. We were like, oh my goodness, what are the neighbors thinking? Are they holding a funeral in the house? Like, what's happening? But it's something that we look back on and kind of giggle and remember and think, you know, Lord, your ways are so unconventional. And I think if we're not careful, we could actually miss the little nuances and the little bright flickers of humor and joy and just the fun things that he wants us to notice, just to trust him and to not live in a place of hurt, but to sometimes say, God, sometimes you're really able to give me a chuckle, a laugh, a bright ray of light in a very hard place.
Because the whole thing of the stories is looking back at Joshua chapter 4 of remembering the things I've done here and teaching them to all future generations. So when you're going through something difficult, you have these stories or these things of how God provided as a way to kind of check the fear, check the anxiety, so that you don't go into that fight or flight response, because the fight or flight response is so unhealthy for the body and so stressful for your mental health. So whether it's humor or just remembering how God has taken care of you is the key to good mental health and good spiritual health.
Well said. Well said. Well, thank you for joining us today on the Restore Go podcast. Please like and subscribe. We drop a new podcast every Wednesday. I hope we've encouraged you to look at your life and find those precious moments of laughter and joy. Until next time, be blessed.
Thank you for listening to the Restore Go podcast. Now, Restore Go is produced by Pete Thompson Christian Counseling. Pete is a licensed therapist who offers affordable family and individual counseling in North Texas and online throughout the United States. Pete provides counseling from a biblical perspective. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and visit us at PeteThompson.org.